Welcome to Access Asia, I'm Yuka Hwaye, and here's what's coming up in this edition. What's next for Nepal after deadly Gen Z protests saw dozens dead, the Prime Minister toppled, and government buildings set on fire? Even though calm has been restored on the streets, public anger continues to simmer. More than 300 South Korean workers detained in an immigration raid in the United States have returned home. The event has sent shockwaves through boardrooms, with South Korea's president warning it could make them hesitate to invest in the US. Water lilies as far as the eye can see. We'll visit a seasonal lake in India that offers both a spectacular landscape to visitors and income to flood-affected locals. Nepal is trying to pick up the pieces after 2 days of deadly unrest forced the Prime Minister out. Initially triggered by the government's ban on social media, protests led by the nation's Gen Z quickly degenerated into violence, leaving more than 30 people dead. The United Nations and human rights agencies have expressed concerns about the force used on protesters. Olivia Salazar-Winspear tells us more.
An uneasy calm in a country under curfew. Troops are patrolling the streets in Nepal, threatening to crack down without hesitation on any new demonstrations or acts of vandalism. Burnt-out cars and buildings serve as a reminder of the public anger, which has not completely subsided, despite the resignation of Prime Minister Sharma Oli following widespread protests. The Gen Z demonstrations began after a social media ban on September 4th, when 26 networks were blocked for failing to register with the Nepalese Ministry of Communication. Authorities said the move was designed to tackle fake news, hate speech and fraud, while protesters believe the ban was an attempt to silence criticism of the government. Initially billed as a peaceful movement, the protests turned deadly when police officers opened fire on demonstrators. The gatherings grew increasingly violent, and soon after, government buildings and politicians' homes had been set alight. The social media ban was quickly reversed, and while it may have been the spark for these protests, many Nepalese people say corruption and nepotism are the major concerns as the country grapples with political instability and economic stagnation.
They ruled for several years. They deceived the poor and spent citizens' money for their own profit.
Despite the damage, it's a historic revolution that's awakened me and my compatriots. Everything will change with the fall of the government. From now on, citizens will get their fair share.
Activity has resumed, including for the protest movement, on platforms like Instagram and Facebook, which have millions of accounts in Nepal, one of the highest user rates per capita in South Asia. While most military and political figures have clashed with the so-called Gen Z protesters, the mayor of Kathmandu, Balen Shah, has published messages of support to those calling for change, while also calling for restraint.
It was a scene that shocked the corporate world. Almost 500 people were rounded up as US agents in military uniforms raided a battery plant jointly owned by Hyundai and LG in one of the largest immigration raids in US history. Many of the arrested were South Korean workers. The event came just weeks after Seoul agreed a trade deal with Washington, which included a new investment by South Korea in US-owned industries to the tune of $350 billion. As he marked 100 days after taking over a country in crisis, President Lee Jae Myung warned of possible consequences of the raid.
They're deporting people in drastic ways. It seems like we were one of the cases that got caught in the crackdown. This could probably have a significant impact on future direct investments in the US. If the US has practical needs, they won't leave the issue unresolved, but under the current circumstances, direct investment in the US is something our companies are likely to hesitate about.
Well, for more on this story, let's bring in Jae Song, Honorary Associate Professor of the Australian National University. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The raid really seemed like a slap in the face for President Lee of South Korea, who visited Washington only last month for a bilateral summit with Donald Trump. Now he's warning about future investments, as we've just heard. What could be the fallout now?
It's actually working against the U.S. own national interest because those factories in Georgia, without these highly skilled South Korean workers, cannot run. In fact, the factory processing has been halted since the ICE raid on South Koreans. President Donald Trump seemed to be sort of quickly realized that the ICE has completely messed up with his valuable client and investor, South Korean. These big companies. Without any apologies, however, President Trump offered, any Koreans in these factories can remain in the U.S. if they wish to do so. But it seems that no thanks. All Koreans have gone home, except for one whose families are permanent resident in the U.S.
Yeah, and many South Korean companies must be asking the question now, is it worth doing business with America?
Oh, yeah, that's true. In President Lee Jae Myung's press conference, he seemed to sort of keep his distance from this saga. He even characterized this event as a cultural difference, which is a bit awkward as well. In other words, the U.S. has a harsh policy on tourist visa holders, whereas in South Korea, it is normal for foreign visitors, including Americans, to come and work as English teachers. And South Koreans don't do this kind of a massive sort of military-style raid on these tourist visa holders. While it's not exactly true as the South Korean immigration laws are highly restrictive, but the President Lee has referred to the South Korean companies that they will be more reluctant to operate in business in the U.S. So he's sort of keeping his distance from, this whole, saga and sort of playing the ball, giving the responsibility or the response to the companies, Hyundai and LG and some other 20 or something South Korean companies that have an operation in the U.S. at the moment.
Now, this raid, but also recent trade deals with South Korea and also Japan, which many see as not very balanced, show just how far the US president can go to threaten even long-time allies, not just in commercial relationships, but the military allies, to pursue his agenda. Could such an approach harm the relationship?
That's a really good question. It's not just the South Korean, but I mean, it can apply to all U.S. partners and allies in the region or around the world, because the trade deal was made between the two heads of state just last month, with a major South Korean investment in the U.S. President Lee seems to suggest that it's not his government, but the companies based in the U.S. that will make the decision to withdraw or not. But it's very unlikely that this main battery factories had already been built in Georgia, and moving them to another location will be very, very costly and involve a massive financial loss.
On the South Korean side, though, could this incident spark fury and perhaps anti-US sentiment among ordinary people?
Yes, it's already sparked a big fury amongst the South Korean citizens. There is a latest poll suggests that 70% of the South Korean responded to this poll, saying that it's the U.S. fault, and why should we invest, our big companies and building battery factories in the U.S. when our workers, our own citizens, are maltreated in this manner. So there is a very sort of anti-American sentiment is growing at the moment, and the government seems to sort of control, this kind of sentiment so that they can carry on this bilateral trade relation and even bigger, a relation between the two countries.
Well, Jae Song from the Australian National University, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Now, it may feel like nirvana on Earth, so picture perfect that one might think it's AI generated. For a fleeting period each year, Lake Malakai in Kerala, southern India, turns pink, its surface covered with water lilies. It's actually a byproduct of monsoon rains that flood farmland each year, but instead of just waiting for water to recede, local farmers can also get some extra income from the lotus flowers and tourism. Aurore Chloé Dupuis and our colleagues at France 2 have this report.
A rare sight revealed at the crack of dawn. Welcome to the village of Mallarikal, southern India, where the lake is covered in pink water lilies that bloom only at sunrise. In a few hours, they will close again, shielding from the sun. To witness Mother Nature's beauty, these visitors had to wake up extra early.
It is very cooling for your eyes, very relaxing for your mind, and you can actually keep quiet and listen. There are only noise of the birds. And
My daughter wanted to see this. She told everyone at school she was coming here, so we had no choice.
In just a few years, this lotus lake has become a tourist sensation, drawing visitors from across India.
Turn your head this way. No, maybe more like that.
A romantic spot for young couples like this one who chose this backdrop for their engagement photos.
I first saw this place on social media and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time I saw a picture, I told him we have to go.
Honestly, I only came because she wouldn't stop talking about it. Now I see it. I'm speechless.
Today, blossoms cover the entire lake, but soon they will disappear.
It's a special site because flowers only bloom for 2 or 3 months. That's why couples flock here for their engagement photos.
Beneath the lake lies a rice field. It's submerged every year by the monsoon. Locals have to wait for the water to recede before farming again. In the meantime, they rely on tourism to feed the 400 families living nearby.
At this time of year, none of us had an income, but now God has given us these flowers. I sell 30 bouquets every day and earn 10 euros. A home earning 10 euros a day is a happy home.
In just a few weeks, Kerala's floating garden will dry up, only to bloom again with the next monsoon.
That's all for this edition of Access Asia. Thanks for watching, but do stay tuned if you can. There's more world news coming up here on France 24.